When you think of code, you probably think of computer code, which converts information into another form of representation so that it can be sent through a channel or stored. Okay, I had to look that terminology up, as I'm not a computer programmer, but the concept is the same for communication. We take our thoughts, feelings, and attitudes, and in order to communicate them through a channel, we convert them into codes, both verbal, or words, and nonverbal, so that receivers can decode them. Unlike computer coding, though, this conversion can be both intentional and unintentional. That's what this video will focus on, a brief description of the nonverbal codes, intentionally or otherwise, that we use to communicate information. You may also hear this referred to as dimensions in nonverbal communication. I say brief because there's too much information to do justice in a short video. There are other resources you can turn to for more detailed information on each of the codes. You might want to think of these codes as a bit icky, as many of the terms end in ick. The basic nonverbal codes are Objectics, Proxemics, Chronemics, Vocalics, Kinesics, Oculesics, Haptics, Olfactics, and to a much lesser degree, Gustorics. Before we go into these, remember that different textbooks may use different terms, but the underlying definitions are the same. Also, remember that all of these codes are really symbols that stand for something else. How we interpret or misinterpret those symbols is based upon context, culture, knowledge, exposure, and perception. And finally, not everything that is nonverbal fits neatly into these codes. Okay, enough caveats. Let's go to the codes, starting with Objectics. Objectics relates to things, objects, sometimes called artifacts. These are things in the physical environment, like what you decorate your house with, what you choose to wear, your car, the briefcase or backpack you carry, and so on. Some scholars include all aspects of physical appearance in this code, while others separate it out as a separate field of study called physical appearance, a name that doesn't end in ick. Proxemics relates to space. Think proximity. We keep different amounts of space between ourselves and others depending upon the type of relationship we have. We have our own personal space bubbles, which you can easily see when people get in an elevator. If you're by yourself in an elevator, you will stand anywhere you want. As soon as others enter the elevator, you move to the side to give them and yourself some space. Add another person to the elevator, and you all move again. Chronemics refers to time. Think chronology. I tend to think of Chronos, the Greek god of time. You've probably heard the phrase, time talks. People use time differently, and we assign meaning to how someone uses time. Someone who is perpetually late, for example, may view time differently than we do, and we draw conclusions based upon that use of time. They are busy. They don't care about the event. They lost track of time. All of these are based on a nonverbal behavior. Vocalics, you should be able to figure that one out. How we use our voices. Our voices can complement the verbal message, the words we are using, or contradict. You may also hear this referred to as paralanguage or paralinguistics, meaning like language. Our voices can also substitute for words, such as the ahs and ers we use, that have no verbal meaning but fill in the gaps, often leading people to believe that we're unsure or don't know what we are talking about. Kinesics is the study of body language. If you are majoring in kinesiology, you are studying the mechanics of body movement. This includes gestures, posture, and facial expressions. Oculesics refers to the eyes. No, there's not a typo on the screen. The word is indented under Kinesics for a reason. Technically, Oculesics is a sub-area of Kinesics because eye movement is still body movement. However, scholars believe it's important enough to warrant its own category. Haptics is probably the most difficult of all of these to get, as it doesn't sound like what it is. It means the study of touch. If your smartphone or tablet has a touch screen, it's using haptic technology or haptic feedback. It matters who you touch, where you touch, how long you touch, even the context in which you touch. A slap on the rear end means something entirely different if it happens on the field at a football game versus if it takes place in the locker room. This last one is not discussed in communication textbooks, but it's important nonetheless. Olfactics relates to smell. We spend a lot of time and money making sure we smell clean, We choose colognes for different occasions. And according to the Bad Breath Institute, Americans spend over $10 billion each year on oral hygiene products like breath mints, gum, mouthwashes, and toothpaste to make sure the smell of our breath is acceptable to others. Okay, I know that the main reason for brushing our teeth with toothpaste is not for fresh breath, but you have to admit that it's an important side benefit. There is one other ick that's not usually discussed in nonverbal communication between humans, but I'll mention it here. Gustorics, which is the study of taste. Yes, there is taste involving kissing, and some people swear that baking a delicious meal for someone, appealing to taste, is definitely sending a message. But remember, not everything falls neatly into these categories. Visual communication is a field that focuses only on the visual elements of communication, such as the color and font choices used in an advertisement, lighting and color in still photography, and camera angles in a movie. To use another cliche, a picture paints 1,000 words. It can complement, contradict, or replace a verbal message. My daughter, for example, can identify everything Disney, even if she can't read the words. The font is enough to send her into a tizzy. There's no doubt that visual images communicate. And sound communicates as well, what we will refer to as aural, non-oral communication. Aural refers to auditory. In our case, what you hear through your ears that is not vocalics. Have you ever watched a horror movie with the sound turned off? It's not very scary, as the music communicates the suspense. You hear the sounds of a police siren and immediately look around to see if you're the one in trouble. If I were recording this in a bowling alley, I wouldn't have to use words or pictures to tell you where I am if you could hear the bowling balls crashing into the pins in the background. The background music on videos communicates as well, as the Benny Hill theme song, Yakety Sax, tells us that what we are seeing should be funny. A Moroccan national tour guide related an interesting example of the use of sound to communicate. According to the Quran, Muslim women must be fully covered in robes, and often in headscarves, in the presence of a man who is not a close family member. While at home alone or in the presence of other women, women don't have to cover. However, if someone knocks on the door, the decision is to cover or not cover, depending upon the sex of the visitor. So traditionally, Muslim homes were equipped with 2 doors, a knocker on each door. A male visitor will knock on the outside door, the man's door, while a female visitor will knock on the smaller door. The differing sound communicates the sex of the visitor to the women inside, allowing them to make the appropriate decision. Before we leave this topic, I need to emphasize that interpretation of these nonverbal codes vary due to a variety of factors. However, now that you've gotten a taste of the icky codes used in nonverbal communication, you can delve deeper into each of these codes in the future.